The story of the Rolling Stones is one of the most incredible in all of music history. It all begins in the early 1960s, a time of massive cultural change in Britain. Two childhood friends, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, reconnected by chance on a train platform in Dartford, Kent, in 1961. Mick was carrying some blues records, including albums by Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry. Keith saw these records and a conversation started. This shared passion for American rhythm and blues was the spark that would eventually ignite one of the world's greatest rock and roll bands. They found they weren't alone in their love for this raw, electric sound. They soon joined forces with a brilliant multi-instrumentalist named Brian Jones. Jones was a true blues purist and in many ways the band's original leader. He even gave the band its name, inspired by a Muddy Waters song, Rollin' Stone. The core was forming. They added Ian Stewart on piano, a phenomenal player who would remain a key part of the Stones world for decades, even after being moved to a behind-the-scenes role. With the addition of drummer Charlie Watts and bassist Bill Wyman, the classic original lineup of the Rolling Stones was complete. They started playing small clubs in London, honing their craft and building a reputation. Their early sound was a raw, energetic tribute to their heroes. They played covers of songs by Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley and other American blues and R&B pioneers. Their manager, Andrew Loog Oldham, saw their potential, but also knew they needed an image. He famously marketed them as the dangerous, rebellious alternative to the more clean-cut Beatles. This bad boy image stuck, and it perfectly complemented the gritty, blues-drenched music they were making. It was a powerful combination that immediately captured the attention of Britain's youth, who were hungry for something new and exciting, something that felt a little bit dangerous. This initial period was all about paying their dues. They were learning how to play together, how to perform for a crowd, and how to translate the energy of their influences into something uniquely their own. While they were playing covers, the Jagger-Richards songwriting partnership was starting to develop in the background. It was this creative engine that would soon propel them from being a great covers band to becoming world-conquering songwriters. The foundations were being laid for a career that would span over 60 years, a testament to their incredible talent, resilience, and unwavering dedication to the power of rock and roll. The Rolling Stones' discography is a journey through the evolution of rock music itself. Their breakthrough came with their early singles. While their first single was a Chuck Berry cover, it was I Can't Get No Satisfaction in 1965 that truly changed everything. That iconic, fuzzed-out guitar riff, played by Keith Richards, became an anthem for a generation. It was a global #1 hit and announced the arrival of the Jagger-Richards songwriting team as a major force. It was followed by a string of classics like Get Off of McCloud and the beautiful Baroque pop ballad As Tears Go By, showcasing their growing versatility as writers. The band's albums from this period, like the Rolling Stones, Now and Aftermath, showed them moving beyond their blues cover roots. Aftermath, released in 1966, was the first Stones album to feature all original Jagger-Richards compositions. It was a huge step forward with songs like Under My Thumb and Paint It Black. Brian Jones's experimental side was crucial here, as he added exotic instruments like the sitar and marimba, giving the band's sound new textures and colours. This psychedelic influence continued with 1967's Their Satanic Majesty's Request, their response to the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's, though it's often seen as an outlier in their catalogue. The period from 1968 to 1972 is widely considered their golden age. This is where they released an unbelievable string of 4 classic albums, starting with Beggar's Banquet. This album saw them return to their blues and country roots, but with a new level of lyrical and musical sophistication on tracks like Sympathy for the Devil and Street Fighting Man. This was followed by Let It Bleed, which featured Gimme Shelter and You Can't Always Get What You Want. This era cemented their reputation as the greatest rock and roll band in the world, a title that felt entirely earned. This incredible run culminated with Sticky Fingers in 1971, and the sprawling double album Exile on Main Street in 1972. Sticky Fingers, with its famous Andy Warhol-designed zipper cover, gave us Brown Sugar and Wild Horses. Exile, recorded in the south of France in a haze of rock and roll decadence, is a gritty, swampy masterpiece. It's a dense and sprawling collection of rock, blues, country and soul that many fans and critics consider their finest work. These albums weren't just collections of songs. They were immersive experiences that defined the sound and attitude of rock music for years to come. The Rolling Stones have famously endured for over 60 years, but the lineup has not remained static. The first and most tragic change came in 1969. Brian Jones, the band's founder and original leader, was struggling with addiction, and his creative contributions had diminished. He was becoming increasingly unreliable, and the band made the difficult decision to part ways with him. It was a profound shift. Jones was a gifted musician whose experimental touches had been vital to their mid-60s sound. His departure marked the end of the band's first chapter. Tragically, he would pass away less than a month later. To fill the void left by Jones, the Stones recruited a young, virtuosic guitarist from John Mayall and the bluesbreakers named Mick Taylor. Taylor's arrival ushered in what many consider the band's creative peak. His fluid, melodic lead guitar style was a perfect complement to Keith Richards' rhythmic, riff-based playing. You can hear his incredible work all over those classic albums, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, and Goat's Head Soup. He was a different kind of player than Brian Jones, less of an instrumental colorist and more of a pure guitar hero, and his solos became a signature part of their live shows. Mick Taylor's tenure with the band, however, was relatively short. He abruptly quit in 1974, just before they were due to start recording a new album. Taylor was reportedly frustrated with the band's internal dynamics and felt he wasn't receiving proper credit for his songwriting contributions. His departure left another huge hole to fill. The band held auditions with many famous guitarists, including Jeff Beck and Rory Gallagher, before the spot was ultimately won by Ronnie Wood. Wood, a friend of the band and then a member of the Faces, had a playing style and personality that meshed perfectly with Keith's. Ronnie Wood officially joined in 1975 and has been a cornerstone of the band ever since. His weaving guitar style with Keith Richards became a new hallmark of the Stones' sound. Then, in 1993, another original member departed when bassist Bill Wyman decided to retire after more than 30 years. He felt he had done his time and wanted a quieter life. The band chose not to officially replace him. Instead, the brilliant session and touring musician Darryl Jones has been their bassist for both recording and live shows ever since. The most recent and heartbreaking change came in 2021, with the passing of the irreplaceable Charlie Watts, the band's heartbeat for nearly 60 years. Steve Jordan, a longtime collaborator of Keith's, has since taken up the difficult task of sitting behind the drum kit. Keith Richards' sound is one of the most recognizable in rock, and his choice of gear is a huge part of that. He's not a flashy gearhead who is constantly changing things. Instead, he has a few trusted tools that he has used to create his signature tones. At the heart of his collection is his number one guitar, a 1953 Fender Telecaster he nicknamed Mickelbear. This is the guitar most people picture when they think of Keith. It's famously modified, most notably with a Gibson PAF humbucker pickup in the neck position, and of course set up for his signature 5-string open G tuning. It's a workhorse guitar that has been on countless recordings and tours. While the Telecaster is his most famous, Keith has used a wide variety of guitars over the years. In the early days, you would often see him with a Harmony Meteor or a Gibson Les Paul Standard. It was a 1959 Les Paul that he used to get that incredible fuzz tone on I Can't Get No Satisfaction through a Maestro FZ1 fuzz tone pedal. He also became closely associated with the Gibson Les Paul Custom, the Black Beauty, especially during the late 60s and early 70s. He's also known for playing Gibson ES335s and ES355s, which are semi-hollow body guitars that give a slightly different, woodier tone than the solid-body Telecasters and Les Pauls. When it comes to amplifiers, Keith's philosophy is similar. Find what works and stick with it. His sound is famously rooted in mid-sized, non-master volume tube amps that are turned up to the point of breaking up. For decades, his go-to amp has been the Fender Twin Reverb, particularly models from the 1950s. These amps are known for their clean headroom but deliver a fantastic, crunchy overdrive when pushed hard. He often uses two of them on stage. He doesn't rely on a chain of pedals to get his sound. He gets his signature grit directly from the relationship between his guitar, his picking dynamics, and the amp itself. As for effects, Keith is a minimalist. His sound is not about a wash of delays or heavy modulation. The most important effect in his arsenal is the natural overdrive from his Fender Twin amps. In the early days, the Maestro fuzz pedal was crucial for satisfaction, but that was more of a studio tool to achieve a specific sound. He has occasionally used phasers, like the MXR Phase 100, which you can hear on songs like Shattered. But for the most part, his sound is pure and direct. A great guitar plugged into a great tube amp, turned up loud, is all in his hands and his unique approach to the instrument. One of the absolute keys to understanding the Rolling Stones' sound is Keith Richards' use of open G tuning. It's so fundamental to his style that it's impossible to separate the two. So what is it? Well, standard guitar tuning is E, A, D, G, B, E. Open G tuning changes that. You tune the low E string down to D, the A string down to G, and the high E string down to D. The result is D, G, D, G, B, D. When you strum the open strings, you get a G major chord. This is a common tuning in blues and folk music, often used for slide guitar, but Keith Richards made it his own. The story goes that he started experimenting with open tunings around 1968, learning from blues players and a fellow guitarist, Ry Cooder. He was looking for new sounds and new ways to approach the guitar. However, Keith put his own unique twist on it. He decided to remove the lowest string, the low D, from his guitar altogether. So, his famous 5-string open G is tuned from low to high G, D, G, B, D. He did this because he felt the low 6th string got in the way and made the root note of the chord sound muddy. By removing it, the chord's voicing becomes clearer and more powerful. So why does this matter so much? It completely changes how you approach the instrument. In standard tuning, playing chords often requires complex finger shapes. In open G, you can play a major chord just by barring a single finger across all 5 strings at any fret. This frees up your other fingers to add embellishments, hammer-ons, and pull-offs. It turns the guitar into a more rhythmic and percussive instrument. It's less about playing complex scales and more about finding powerful resonant chord voicings and riffs. It fundamentally changed how he wrote songs for the band. This discovery unlocked a whole new creative vocabulary for Keith. It led directly to some of the Stones' most iconic riffs. Think about the opening of Honky Tonk Women, Brown Sugar, Start Me Up, or Can't You Hear Me Knocking. All of those legendary riffs are played in open G. They have a certain ring and resonance that is very difficult to replicate in standard tuning. It's a sound that is instantly recognizable as Keith Richards. This innovation wasn't just a technical trick, it was a conceptual breakthrough that would define the guitar sound of the Rolling Stones for the next 50 years. The adoption of open G tuning by Keith Richards had a profound and lasting impact on the entire sound of the Rolling Stones. It wasn't just a change for his guitar parts, it reshaped the band's entire musical DNA. The tuning allowed Keith to develop his signature style, often referred to as the ancient art of weaving. This is the telepathic interplay between his guitar and Ronnie Wood's. Since Keith's guitar is focused on those big open G riffs, Ronnie's guitar, often in standard tuning, can weave intricate melodic lines, fills and counter melodies around it. They aren't just playing rhythm and lead, they are creating a single complex guitar texture from two parts. This new approach fundamentally changed the role of the guitar in the band. Instead of a traditional structure, with one guitar playing chords and the other playing solos, the Stones developed a more fluid and interactive dynamic. The open G tuning gives Keith's riffs a drone-like quality, a constant harmonic center that the rest of the band can play off. Charlie Watts's drumming, always impeccable in its timing and feel, locked into the groove of these riffs perfectly. Bill Wyman's and later Darryl Jones' bass lines could either double the riff's root note for power or play more melodically against it, creating a deep and funky pocket. The open G tuning also influenced Mick Jagger's role as a frontman and songwriter. The powerful, direct nature of the riffs gave Mick a solid, driving platform to sing over. The songs became more groove-oriented and rhythmically compelling. The simplicity of the chord structures in open G allowed for a focus on feel and energy, which is the essence of the Stones' live performance. It gave them a sound that was perfect for big arenas and stadiums. It's a sound that is simultaneously raw and sophisticated, simple in its building blocks, but complex in its execution and interplay between the musicians. You can trace the evolution of this sound through their albums. Starting with Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed, you can hear the open G sound beginning to dominate. By the time you get to Exile on Main Saint and Some Girls, it's the absolute foundation of their sound. It's the reason why so many of their songs feel so good to listen to. It's not about technical wizardry for its own sake. It's about the power of the riff and the groove. Keith Richards didn't just find a new tuning. He found a new way for a rock and roll band to function, creating a template that countless bands have tried to emulate ever since. In an era dominated by pop stars and viral trends, a question often arises: are the Rolling Stones still relevant? Looking at the data, the answer is a resounding yes. Their music is not just a relic of the past, it is actively being discovered and enjoyed by new generations on modern platforms. On Spotify, for example, they command a massive audience with over 30 million monthly listeners. Hit songs like Paint It Black have been streamed well over 1 billion times, while classics like Gimme Shelter and I Can't Get No Satisfaction are not far behind, each with hundreds of millions of streams. This shows an incredible and sustained level of engagement. The story is similar on YouTube. Their official channel is packed with high-quality music videos, live performances, and lyric videos that garner millions of views. The music video for Start Me Up, for instance, has hundreds of millions of views. It's not just the old fans rewatching. The comment sections are filled with younger listeners expressing their amazement at discovering the band for the first time. The visual element of their performances, led by Mick Jagger's inimitable energy, translates perfectly to a visual platform like YouTube, ensuring their legacy is not just heard, but also seen by a global audience. What about album sales and chart performance, the traditional metrics of success? The Rolling Stones continue to make their presence felt here as well. Their back catalogue consistently sells both physically on vinyl and CD and digitally. Whenever they release a reissue or a deluxe edition of a classic album, it often re-enters the charts. More impressively, their new material still makes a huge impact. Their 2023 album, Hackney Diamonds, was a global phenomenon. It debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart in the US and shot to number 1 in the UK and many other countries, proving they can still compete at the highest level. This enduring popularity is a testament to the timeless quality of their music. The riffs are infectious, the grooves are undeniable, and the songs speak to universal themes of love, loss, rebellion, and the passage of time. They have also managed their legacy brilliantly, with constant touring that puts their incredible energy on display. A Rolling Stones concert is still one of the biggest events in music, selling out stadiums worldwide. They haven't become a nostalgia act. They are a living, breathing, and incredibly vital rock and roll band, still creating and performing at a level that is simply astonishing. On the 3rd of July 1969, the rock and roll world was shaken by tragic news. Brian Jones, the founder and original guitarist of the Rolling Stones, was found dead at the bottom of the swimming pool at his home, Cotchford Farm in East Sussex. He was only 27 years old. The news came less than a month after he had been asked to leave the band he had started. The official story, as determined by the coroner's report, was death by misadventure. The coroner noted that Jones's liver and heart were severely enlarged by past drug and alcohol abuse, and he had drowned while under the influence. It was ruled an accidental death. The events of that night have been the subject of intense speculation for over 50 years. Jones had spent the evening at his home with a few people, his girlfriend, Anna Wolin, and a nurse, Janet Lawson. Also present was a builder named Frank Thorogood, who had been working on renovations at the property. Jones had reportedly been drinking and had taken some sleeping pills. According to the initial statements, he went for a swim in his pool. Later, he was discovered motionless at the bottom. Despite efforts to revive him, he was pronounced dead upon the arrival of the ambulance. On the surface, the death by misadventure verdict seemed plausible. Jones had a well-documented history of substance abuse, and his health was poor. The combination of alcohol and barbiturates could have easily led to him losing consciousness in the water. For years, this was the accepted version of events, a sad but straightforward rock and roll tragedy. However, inconsistencies in the witness statements and a general feeling that something was not right began to fuel conspiracy theories. Many close to the situation, including some who were there that night, began to doubt the official narrative. The key figure at the center of these doubts was Frank Thorogood. He was one of the last people to see Brian Jones alive. The relationship between the two men was reportedly strained. Jones was unhappy with the work Thorogood was doing and the amount of money he was being paid. There were stories of arguments and tension between them in the days and hours leading up to Jones's death. These details began to paint a more complex picture than a simple accident. The idea that there might have been a confrontation or foul play involved started to take root, turning a tragic accident into an enduring murder mystery. The official narrative of Brian Jones's death began to seriously unravel as key witnesses changed their stories over the years. Janet Lawson, the nurse who was present that night, later claimed that she saw Frank Thorogood acting strangely and that his behavior towards Jones was aggressive. In later interviews, she stated her belief that Thorogood was responsible for Brian's death, suggesting there was a fight or a struggle in the pool that was covered up. She claimed she was pressured by police at the time to stick to a simpler story, adding another layer of suspicion to the official investigation. The most compelling piece of evidence pointing towards foul play came much later. In 1993, just before his own death from cancer, Frank Thorogood reportedly made a deathbed confession. The confession was allegedly made to Tom Keelock, the Rolling Stones road manager, who was a close friend of Thorogood. According to Keelock, Thorogood admitted to killing Jones, though he claimed it was an accident during a fight. He said something along the lines of, "I did it. I just finally snapped." This alleged confession, relayed secondhand, blew the case wide open again, leading to calls for the police to reopen the investigation. Further details emerged in a 2008 book by author Terry Rawlings, who had access to diaries and papers from Tom Keelock. This material seemed to corroborate the story of the confession and provided more context about the tensions at the farm. Another book, Who Killed Christopher Robin, by Terry Rawlings and Anna Wolin, Brian's girlfriend at the time, also argued for the murder theory. Wolin has always maintained that Brian was in good spirits that day and that the official verdict never made sense to her. She believes Thorogood was involved and has campaigned for the case to be reopened. Despite these revelations and repeated requests, Sussex police have reviewed the case several times but have never officially reopened it, citing a lack of new evidence that would meet the threshold for a new criminal investigation. And so, the death of Brian Jones remains one of rock's greatest unsolved mysteries. Was it a tragic accident fueled by a rock star's excesses, or was it a confrontation that ended in manslaughter, covered up for decades? The shadow of Frank Thorogood and his alleged confession hangs over the story, leaving a permanent question mark. It's a dark and fascinating chapter in the incredible saga of the Rolling Stones. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, please remember to like this video and subscribe to Everything Music.